Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday after Memorial Day edition of Monday Musings. Part of the reason I didn't record yesterday was that I just plumb forgot yesterday afternoon. Also, as we all know, the governor had said that he was going to issue new guidelines for houses of worship that would be out no later than yesterday, and so those did indeed come out yesterday. Part of me was hoping that the diocese would have had that already, and so would be able to give us a date, so I'd be able to come on today or this week and say, hey, guess what, everybody, our date is. But unfortunately, I can't do that. We've not gotten a date yet from the diocese. In reviewing the guidelines that the state, excuse me, that the state issued over the weekend, there's really only two things that stand out that are very different from what the guidelines that the diocese had sent out a couple weeks ago had included. One is that the capacity of 25% or 100 people, whichever is smaller, and giving our seating capacity here at St. Dominic's that 100 is the smaller number. We were thinking that 150 would be the number based on what we had previously. Now the number is 100. So that's one change. And then the other change is the strong suggestion from the state of either taking people's temperatures or asking them screening questions before giving access to the church. This is, of course, unprecedented for entering a church, so really need the diocese guidelines on that of whether or not the bishop is going to ask us to do that before or as part of opening Mass up again. To me, this is kind of the same thing as it comes to the lottery system that some places have implemented. I just don't like the idea of turning people away from coming to Mass. That goes against everything that I believe and was taught. And yet I also know that we're living in extraordinary times, and so that may well be what we're going to have to do, at least in the beginning, to enforce this number of 100 people for Mass. So this is a time for me to really encourage you to think of coming to daily Mass instead of just your normal Sunday Mass. That way we can spread out attendance over the week, and that you will be able to go to Mass and to receive communion, which I know so many of you are really missing in the email conversations, phone conversations, and the few of you that I've run into along the street, that you are really feeling that desire to receive our Lord in the Eucharist, and I completely understand and bless that desire, and really want to fulfill that desire as soon as we safely can. These guidelines are here to protect the most vulnerable among us and the transmission of it. This disease remains highly contagious. So the last thing that I or any pastor wants is a gathering of the faithful to become a new locus of infection, and somebody who didn't know they were symptomatic and doesn't wear a mask or chooses not to wear a mask and then infects 5-6 other people. That would, of course, we would be on lockdown again, and of course that's what the state's overall plan in opening in stages is again keeping the rate of infection very low and manageable, and particularly for houses of worship, because of course we do gather in large groups. Looks like it's going to be now no larger than 100. But again, doing what we can to prudently prepare the space in which we worship, the church, and we've got the spray bottles and all the things that we're going to have in order to clean the church afterwards. But also a lot is going to rely on you who are coming to comply with the bishop's wishes of wearing a face mask and gloves when you come to Mass, and that if you are sick with COVID or any other illness, to stay home, not to expose the one another to that. Of course, the danger that shows over and over again is when people are sick and they don't know it, and that they unwittingly expose other people to the disease. And that's where face masks are particularly important. So it seems that it is airborne spittle that is one of the main vectors of transmission. And of course, as we gather in large groups, we're singing, we're speaking, we're praying, and that is why we need to be so careful in these days of gathering so soon after being in shelter in place for now 2.5 months, again, perhaps longer, before we can gather again. So again, just asking your understanding, your patience. I know patience is wearing thin, and especially as we get closer, that people are getting antsy, getting excited. And again, I completely understand. I get it. And we're just in this weird space now where our religious leaders, not just the bishop, but in our case, the bishop, is taking all this information that he has received and trying to do what is best for all of the people of the Diocese of Sacramento, just as I here at St. Dominic's try to do the best for all of you in the parish. And that's why, again, following these guidelines are so important, because they are based on the best information that we have. So, okay, we'll put that aside for now. This is Brother Athanasius's last week with us. He'll be returning to St. Albert's early next week to be with the rest of the student brothers. They're not going anywhere this summer. They're going to have a very St. Albert's summer. I spent a couple of summers when I was a student brother at St. Albert's, and it was a very, being there in a big house, kind of all by yourself, it's kind of a depressing thing. But of course, they're all going to be there, so it's not going to be that experience that I had when I was doing my studies one summer at Cal and one summer with all of my classmates there at St. Albert's. Let's see, Father Brad is again preparing to leave in July, and Brother Gregory will be here at the beginning of July, so we'll have a time with him and a nice time of transition between Father Brad and Brother Gregory. Again, Brother Gregory's ordination won't be until September, so we will be having some outside priest help after Father Brad excuse me, leaves for Washington, D.C., so that, because I cannot celebrate 6 Masses on Sunday all by myself, and the bishop's restriction of priests and deacons over 65 engaging in public ministry is still in place, so Father David and Father Vincent will not be celebrating public Masses, unless, of course, the bishop lifts his restriction in the meantime. And of course, as I'm thinking ahead to the reopening and whatnot, it is our older parishioners and Father David and Father Vincent that I'm most concerned for, because they're the most vulnerable, and that they're going to be the ones, especially Father David's going to be out there on the patio outside of church wanting to say hello to you and tell you how much he loves you and how much he missed you, which he has, as we all have. But I think Father David, particularly, it's been particularly difficult for him not to see all of you and to tell you how much that he loves you and to hear what's going on in your families. But again, the danger of someone older or someone with underlying health conditions getting this infection is frightening. And again, that's why the guidelines are important. But I'm getting back to that. But it's for me, it's kind of a happy, sad week. Well, not sad. Sad that you're not here, but happy in that this week is my ordination anniversary and be 22 this year. And then, of course, a couple weeks will be my 50th birthday. Miss Parada over at the school just had her 29th birthday this past week, and I was texting her for tips, saying, "Hey, any tips for celebrating your birthday in quarantine?" And she wrote back, "Yeah, find a pool." And of course, given the heat wave that we've had the last couple of days, that is very good advice. So thank you, Miss Parada, for that. The school had its virtual graduation last week with our 8th graders, so they're now all promoted and ready to enter into high school. This Friday, I'll be celebrating the 8:15 Mass, and Father Brad will be preaching, because if the school children were still here, this would be the last day of school Mass. So the whole school, without the newly graduated 8th graders, gathers and prays one more time before dispersing for the summers. But of course, this year will be virtual, that the families will be hopefully watching the 8:15 Mass, because this will be the last opportunity that Father Brad has to address the school children before he moves on. And that's what's kind of going on right now. We're continuing to prepare for return to Mass, hoping that is going to be soon. Again, if I hear anything, I will certainly let you know, either by email, by video, well, actually by all the ways that we can do it quickly and expeditiously, and let you know the guidelines and what Mass is going to look like, because it is going to be a little different than it was when we left back in March. But anyway, getting off that. So again, I hope you are enjoying the nice weather, that you're able to get out and enjoy it a little bit. I took a walk early this morning because I knew it was going to get very warm today, and I'm not disappointed that coming out over from the house over to here, it's like, ooh, it's hot. Summer feels like it has definitely begun here in Benicia. So God love you, St. Dominic's folks, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.